Title: The Fallout. Mike and I were at our usual spot, a dimly lit bar with worn-out leather booths where we'd shared countless beers and secrets over the years. I hadn't planned on confronting him. I told myself I was just there for a drink, to hear him out, and maybe, just maybe, get some sense of why he was doing what he was doing. But as the night wore on, I could feel the words bubbling up. Words I wasn't sure I could hold back. "You know Sarah doesn't deserve this, right?" I finally said, my voice low. Mike laughed, almost casually. He took a sip of his beer and shrugged. "Dude, you don't understand what it's like. Marriage is complicated, and besides, what Sarah doesn't know won't hurt her." I stared at him, the anger simmering just below the surface. I'd known Mike for a decade, but this was a side of him I couldn't ignore. "So you're just going to keep doing this? Sneaking around behind her back like it's no big deal?" He sighed, waving me off like I was the one being irrational. "Look, you don't get it. You're single. You don't know what it's like to be tied down, to feel like you're suffocating. I just need an escape, all right?" An escape? His words hit me like a slap. Sarah had been nothing but good to him. She trusted him, believed in him, and here he was, throwing it all away as if it meant nothing. But I didn't press further. I let it simmer inside me, thinking maybe he'd realize what he was doing. It was a couple of weeks later when I saw Sarah at a mutual friends gathering. She was laughing, completely unaware, her trust in Mike intact. I could barely look her in the eye, the guilt gnawing at me. It was then I realized I couldn't keep this to myself. She deserved to know the truth, even if it meant breaking a bond I'd held for years. A few days later, I called Sarah, my hands clammy as I dialed her number. When she picked up, her voice was as warm as ever. "Hey, what's up?" she asked, her tone light. "Sarah, we need to talk," I managed to say, my voice steady but heavy. "It's about Mike. And I don't know how to say this, but I think you need to know the truth." There was a long silence, and then she let out a small, shaky breath. "Okay, go on." I told her everything, each word feeling like a hammer falling, shattering the life she'd thought she knew. She was silent at first, but eventually her questions came, one after the other, her voice trembling as she pieced together the betrayal. "How long has this been going on?" she asked finally, barely audible. "I don't know exactly, but months, maybe longer. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but I couldn't just stand by and watch." There was another pause before she spoke again, a mixture of hurt and anger in her voice. "Thank you for telling me. I just need time to process this." That should have been the end of it, but within hours my phone blew up with texts from Mike, each one angrier than the last. "Mike, what the hell did you do?" "Me, she deserved to know, Mike. I couldn't keep lying to her." "Mike, you just couldn't mind your own business, could you?" The next time I saw Mike, it was far from the casual beers we'd shared before. He'd cornered me at my place, his face red with fury. "You just had to ruin everything, didn't you?" he spat, his voice barely contained. "Ruin everything? You did that yourself, Mike. You're the one sneaking around, treating your marriage like it's a game," I shot back, my own anger flaring up. "Who do you think you are, huh? Some kind of hero?" He laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "You're jealous. You're jealous because you've got no one and you can't stand to see me happy." I was stunned by his arrogance, by how far he was willing to twist the truth. "You call that happiness? Hurting the one person who actually loves you?" But he didn't want to hear it. Instead, he resorted to dirty tactics, spreading rumors about me, telling anyone who'd listen that I was a jealous friend trying to ruin his life. Days turned into weeks, and soon enough, his stories had wormed their way into the ears of people who used to be friends. Some took his side, painting me as a backstabber, a meddler who couldn't keep his mouth shut. Others avoided me altogether, not wanting to get caught up in the mess. But it didn't stop there. Mike's lies grew more elaborate, more vicious. He told Sarah that I'd been spreading rumors about her too, that I'd been talking behind her back for years, making it sound like I was some kind of vengeful friend. And worse, he even managed to convince some of her family members, people who'd known me as long as they'd known Mike. Then he went after my family. He called my parents under the pretense of saving our friendship. He told them I was unstable, that I'd developed some twisted obsession with Sarah and couldn't be trusted. My dad called me the next day. "What's going on with you and Mike?" he asked, concern heavy in his voice. Dad, he's lying. I told Sarah the truth because she deserved to know, I said, anger and exhaustion seeping into my voice. Just be careful. Mike's always been intense. Maybe you should try to make peace. But I couldn't make peace with a man who'd thrown away any semblance of decency. It was around that time that I started getting odd comments from people at work. My boss pulled me aside one afternoon, a concerned look on his face. I got a call from someone, apparently an old friend of yours. He was questioning your reliability, said you might be a bit too drama-oriented for our team. I clenched my fists, my stomach twisting. Mike had crossed every line, but I wouldn't let him tear down everything I'd worked for. That friend is spreading lies about me, personal drama that has nothing to do with work, I replied, keeping my voice as steady as I could. I'll provide any clarification you need, but I want it on record that these claims are completely baseless. But the final betrayal came from Sarah herself. She'd reached out after weeks of silence, and at first I thought maybe she'd seen through Mike's lies. But her message was anything but forgiving. Sarah, I should have known better than to trust someone like you. Mike told me everything, the rumors, the lies. I can't believe I thought you were a friend. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. She'd bought into every lie Mike had fed her. I replied, but every message I sent went unanswered. The next day I saw she'd blocked me entirely. In the end, I was left with nothing but the truth and the isolation that came with it. But as painful as it was, I couldn't regret my decision. I'd acted out of honesty, out of loyalty to the person who deserved it most. And while Mike's entitlement and schemes had left me alone, I knew I'd taken the only path that allowed me to sleep at night. This is a solid start to build out the rest. If you like this direction, let's expand each act and add in further conversations, confrontations, and background on these relationships to reach that full depth and word count you're aiming for.